Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, February 9th, 2021 Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District Board Meeting. Our first order of business, can you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the public comment, and I would see if there was anybody in the chambers here this evening that wishes to speak at the public comment period. Going once, twice, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the agenda. And for that, I'm going to see if there are any additions or deletions to our agenda. And I believe one, Bruce, as you mentioned here, we are adding into our consent agenda the meeting minutes from the, Bruce, do you have those with us for the date? The January 9th meeting minutes for the board retreat. We are going to be adding into the consent agenda. Was there anything else, Maggie, that you could think of? Any other changes?
Sorry, I was kind of pulling stuff together. I missed what the question was. Did we add anything else to the agenda?
Were there any changes? We're looking to approve the agenda. I just want to make sure that on your side.
The only other change is that we didn't have time to talk about the personnel policy during the workshop. And I wanted an opportunity to discuss one of the things related to the non-exempt status that would affect how we pay our staff.
Yeah, I just meant for the public meeting here. But that's okay. So that's okay. So seeing also for the managers, anything, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda, the amended agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. So the next item on the agenda is other old new business, and we have our typical programs and projects update. Maggie, take it away.
Okay, Prior Lake level is at 901.4. That is about a foot below what the weir would discharge at. Some of our partners have reached out wondering whether we'd be opening the low flow gate this spring. As of now, it's not looking like that's necessary.
Yes, Jeff, on the website, it keeps saying 900.48 for the elevation.
I've pulled the logger for fear of freezing.
Okay.
I'll need to update that. We're
Okay.
having some.
So do we got to bounce from 900.48 to 90 whatever?
The 900.48 is probably inaccurate.
Inaccurate. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, just a quick update on the Sutton Lake Outlet Project. So this is not the most recent PowerPoint. Hold on. There we go. The contract has been signed, and Vet has been working out at the site, clearing some of the snow and prepping the site. We'll begin to mobilize equipment this week, and the site clearing is scheduled for Monday. It might happen a little bit later, depending on weather and how we pull things together. But because it's going to take about 3 weeks, that means substantial completion will be about the first week of March. The landowners have been kept up to speed on this. We've been trying to respond to their questions, but everything looks pretty good at this point. If you have any questions, you can contact me.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I think it would be really helpful if towards the end of the project being done that we, kind of let our partners know, and if they want to go out there and take a look at it, because a lot of times they don't see it until the finished product, and seeing in the middle of being developed is really, instructional. So could you arrange for that? Maybe when it's 80% along or something?
Manager Hennis. Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned this before, and we definitely have it on our to-do list. We're kind of waiting for them to break ground and to get started. So maybe like in a couple weeks, we would have people out.
Thank you.
This thing is fast forwarding.
You'll have to forgive us. It's been kind of a rush today since we're so short-staffed. I do have this timeline too, if anybody wants to see it. It's just kind of showing where we are with the project. Again, I can provide that to the managers at a later date if they want to see it, but I'm going to give this to Jeff.
Okay, so last month on the 29th, we had our first seine and gill netting activity. We captured 2,300 pounds, roughly 160 individual carp. There were no gill net bycatch, which under our permitted DNR regulations, they were really curious to see if this gill netting would capture any native species, which it didn't. Overall, this diagram kind of shows the blue dots with the individual numbers. Those were where the carp were seen before the activity took place. The red line outlined on the upper left is where the seine net was stretched roughly 3/4 of the way. Below that was an orange line, which is where the gill net was strung out, and it kind of met up with the seine net. From there, we deployed 3 sets of speakers into the water, spooked the fish, and what happened was the fish followed kind of what that blue line was doing. So they moved out of the narrows. They kind of circled around a bit, found them in the seine, and what happened was by the time that seine closed, it's a process to pull the net through, and especially towards shallow ground. Most of the fish had left, and they went straight back to where they started. The concept was good, but they did not cooperate. So we didn't get the haul that we were hoping for, but on paper it looked good, and we learned quite a bit. The next method is going to be using those gill nets in the shallows. So currently they're in Upper Prior Lake. The carp are still kind of hunkered down near Nadiora Marina. Spring Lake carp are approaching that haul area. This is a good sign. We have commercial fishermen that are interested in capturing these carp right now. So we're looking at next week to do kind of a preview with, looking at them with underwater technologies. Currently, the seine factor that's slowing us down right now is the weather. We can't pull fish out of the lake, native or carp, with these temperatures because their gills will freeze, and it's not good for either native fish or for selling fish at market. We are lined up to at least gill net Upper Prior Lake next week, depending on the look through on Spring Lake. Might be Spring Lake the end of next week or shortly after. So we're staying busy with the carp work.
Jeff, before we move off the carp one, can you help us understand what is the price per pound that we would get paid by taking our carp to market?
Currently, the market there is really no market. We are actually paying the price per pound. So this last event, we set up an agreement with the fishermen where we would pay them their kind of base rate netting fee.
Yep.
And any fish captured over 15 pounds, we wouldn't pay because there is a small market for them. Fish under 15 pounds, we would pay them 15 cents per pound as kind of a bounty, like trying to equate to what a normal market could be.
Gotcha.
But that's where I mentioned it kind of hedges our risk, where if they don't catch much, it's not going to be a large price for us to pay.
Right. And we don't get any out, which of course nobody wants. But
Right.
the reason I was kind of wondering about that is what percentage of a catch is often above or below that 15-pound mark that we're,
Upper Prior Lake generally has larger fish than Spring Lake.
okay.
There's
So that's so what I was thinking about is the weather issue. So, and I know we have the game fish that we do care about, but the quantity might get exposed to the cold weather. But what I was wondering is, even if the weather is not good for the carp, but we're paying for it anyway, whether they're healthy or not, I'm trying to understand what that cost would be, and really does that matter? So that's sort of what I'm thinking about in attempting to ask the question, and I don't know the answer, or don't know that you have one, but I'm just posing a question to think through. Maybe it is okay, but I don't know if you guys have thought about that.
Are you suggesting that it is okay for us to not have cold weather consideration as far as keeping the fish alive?
Perfect. That's the question I'm sort of attempting to ask, or just I'm wondering about. And again, I don't know the answer, or that you have that here at your fingertips, but I mean, if the added cost to us was $1,000 or $2,000, but yet we could get a substantial grouping of carp, I might suggest the board would probably be open to entertain that thought. Just because, again, how challenging this has been, we get it. Anyway,
I can answer that question.
yeah, go ahead.
So
How much did this?
Kurt, can you just wait? He was going to answer.
I thought he was done.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
So the answer is yes, we do care whether the fish are alive or not, going to a particular, whether it's an alive market or a dead market. So right now, these fish, it's specific to WSP projects because they have stake in a live transport trucking business. They're actually taking these at no cost to us. So we're actually saving the transport fees that would typically come along with fish in a market year. These fish are getting stored in holding ponds where it's kind of a buffer between market surges. So to the fishermen and to our partners at the business, the trucking business, it does make a difference to whether the commercial fishermen would want to work with us.
To participate, because there are some financial gains for them when they're alive. That's what I'm,
Yeah, we're making the market.
okay, gotcha. Thanks, Jeff. Go ahead, Kurt.
Two questions. Number one, how much did we have to pay for the 2,300 pounds of carp caught? Roughly, ballpark.
I don't have those numbers broken down right now.
You didn't get a bill yet?
No, I have not got the bill yet.
It'd be interesting to see how much 2,300 pounds cost us. Also, if you want to go back to the slide where you have the map at Nadior, how can professional,
This one?
very veteran seiners let a school escape like that as they're closing the nets? How can that happen? That's why we have them.
Yeah, I can't answer that question for them. It's a complicated event, and it's fishing. First of all, we can't control fish and whether to keep them in these nets.
if they're if they had them in sight, if they know where they are, I mean, isn't there some sort of strategy so that doesn't happen?
Yeah, so I could explain a little bit more what happened. Those fish left those narrows and they circled around right where the net should be closing. Now, the longer the net's in the water and the fish are being driven out of the area that they felt comfortable, they know there's nets in the water, and you'll hear this over and over with the commercial fishermen that the fish, they learn quick, they learn to stay out of these areas, and Upper Prior Lake has consistently been said that it's one of the more difficult lakes to seine because fish are becoming accustomed to the nets, and then just like these, unified techniques that we're working to remove the fish. It's complicated, and the commercial fishermen have been great and have been willing to work with us to use these methods. And you've been following along long enough to know that this is not just an average seine, that it's been quite the learning process to get to where we can actually target fish in these tough to get areas. As far as the fishermen not being able to close the net on time, yeah, it's not what we were expecting, of course, you know.
I understand, Jeff, when you're saying that they smarten up pretty quick, and they're not as dumb as you think they would be, but every year they keep schooling in the same spots. Spring Lake, the same spot, just south of Sailor's Greenhouse. Here at Nadior, or up by Mike on Mud Bay. So it's not like they're getting a big surprise as to where they are every year. All right, that's enough.
Kurt, I'm going to see if I can add in, if you would, please, Jeff. Because if you recall, it was maybe 12 or 18 months ago that we actually challenged staff, because we were hearing the traditional seining that they were after that's been successful, they can only do when the conditions are sort of perfect. And if you recall, we've challenged them to go pursue and try out new and different things to go get the fish when they're not in the perfect situation. So that's part of why they're working on the speakers. They've got gill nets and all this other stuff that we've, in essence, encouraged and supported them to do. They're trying things in different ways. This has always been considered to be a challenging spot for them. So what they're trying to do is something that we've asked them to do, is to try something new, and they're getting closer and they're getting pieces of this and they're learning how to do it. So I personally am more tolerant of this because this is what we've asked them to do. I'm glad that they're actually getting something and they're learning. It would have been my question to you, Jeff. What did you learn out of here? What are we going to do different next time? And as long as you're doing that, I'm a fan and you got my support, and I will continue to advocate for this because I have faith in staff and our consultants to go get the job done. So Kurt, I think we need to be a little open to them, because this will take some time to figure out how to do this and be successful at it.
Well, my point is we've been doing this since 2014.
Not this type of seining. That's right.
Well, we've been dealing with carp seiners since 2014, and Jeff, this is no reflection on you, believe me. This is, these are the professional seiners. Why does this happen with professional seiners? Again, no reflection on you, Jeff.
So Kurt, I might argue again, they might not come out to do this. They wouldn't even attempt to make this effort, right? I think that's what I was hearing back before, that they wouldn't have attempted this. And so what we're trying to do, correct, that's where they sort of need to be, and that's not where they are, Kurt. So that's why they're working on the speakers to drive them into that netting area. So they are trying new things. And when you try new things, you're not always successful. So I get it. I'm supportive of your effort. We're hiring the professionals, and this is what they do. It's like the golfers that are professional golfers, and they still get double, triple, and quadruple bogeys, and those folks are doing this stuff day in and day out. So I think it's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anything more on programs, projects? Nope. Thank you. So, okay, so we're moving on to the 4.2, the City of Savage Water Resource Management Plan.
All right, so I'm going to have Carl actually speak to this one. I'll have the memo up, Carl, if you wanted me to scroll through any spot in particular.
Mr. Chair, managers, Maggie, I wasn't necessarily intending to go through the memo. It was really just for you to see that, there were initial comments. The City of Savage, as part of their 2040 comp plan, prepared updates to Chapter 10, which is their water resource management plan. And we reviewed a draft last year and provided some comments, and those are, for the most part, what's attached to Maggie's cover letter that are all stricken through. And either all the comments have either been addressed entirely with revisions to the plan, or are something that will continue on in the form of either a coordination meeting with district staff and city staff, or the future MOU for local surface water management planning, which is something that is in place with the city already for essentially the city undertaking permitting review in compliance with district rules, except for those projects that are sponsored by the municipality. So really, this is the last of the surface water management plans that you have of your member communities that is before you. The Shakopee, Prior Lake, and Scott County have already been before the board and approved, and this would be the last one that you would be considering for approval for quite some time, since they're all on a typically now a 10-year cycle. So it meets all the tenets of the requirements of Minnesota Statute 103B. So staff is recommending approval.
Bruce?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Carl, I just noticed that a lot of the comments you have are for a future meeting or MOA. Do we approve if we approve the plan tonight, I guess, should it be contingent upon those items being resolved, or how do you view that?
So for all the ones that are still saying that it'll be something that's occurring in the future, a meeting occurring in the future, those were comments not on the tenets of whether or not the plan meets 103B
Okay.
statute. It was more of an observation. Hey, you're going to do this. Let's meet. Let's talk about, see if there's a partnership project on this capital improvement that you're proposing in the time frame of your plan. So those are not whether or not the plan meets 103B statute. It's let's work together comments in the future. So I think you're more than safe to move forward with approval, knowing that those coordination efforts are going to continue into the future on those specific items.
Okay, and I see Jesse Carlson's here. You're okay with the plan? Okay.
So Jesse, I might, as long as you're asking a question, would you mind coming up to the mic, please, and then sharing that thought? Thank you, sir. And then, yeah, thanks. If you could then introduce yourself, please, and thank you.
If it's green.
Oh, there we go. Good evening. My name is Jesse Carlson. I work with the City of Savage. I'm their Water Resources Manager. I've been in that position for about 4.5 years now. So I did most of the work on this plan revision. I think one of the key things, though, moving forward is working with Prior Lake, Spring Lake Watershed District staff and Carl, is those coordination meetings. I think is something that I would like to, I think I alluded to, is something that we would do annually or more frequently, so we can discuss projects, coordinate on projects. So that's something that I'm willing to do, and just making sure we have that good working relationship between the city and the watershed district. So other than that, yeah, I feel good about the plan, and I'm ready to go forward with it, so.
Thanks, Jesse. Go ahead, Bruce.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I did read your plan. It's a very good plan. I love the graphics in your plan, so it's great.
Thank you.
I'm ready to make a motion, get this thing moving.
Let me just going to
Is there any-
confirm there were any other questions. I hadn't looked. Seeing none, no, go for it. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay. Motion to approve the City of Savage Water Resource Management Plan dated December 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Frank? Awesome, thank you. 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 4.3, the MOA for permit 2101, future stormwater project.
All right, Mr. Chair, Manager, so the board approved this permit for the city of Prior Lake for its Fish Point Road project, contingent upon an MOA to have it reach the stormwater requirements for our rules. So we've been working with the city on finding a project that'll work, and they have one identified as well as a timeline. So they'll be completing this new future project by 2023 in order for us to make our stormwater rules. And we do have Nick here from the city, and I don't know if Nick, if you want to come up and talk about the potential project at all to give a little bit of background. Not a huge ask, but just like a short preview.
We have a Fish Point Road project slated for construction this summer. You got me? I got the green light. Okay. With that project, it's actually all the side streets of Fish Point Road between County Road 44 and Highway 13. Because of the corridor, we have space issues as far as finding an area to have BMPs, or best management practices for stormwater management. So with this project, we are utilizing credits we had on the Woodside Huron project. Some of you may remember that. We put in some oversized basins, but we are using all those. And then we are also going in deficit. So this agreement is identifying potentially our downtown south reconstruction project as getting some of those credits back. If we're not able to get them in the downtown south project, it does identify that we'll work with the watershed district to identify a location that's tributary to either Upper Prior or Lower Prior Lake for a future project to get those credits back. So I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nick. I think we've got a question. Kurt?
Nick, just a general question for us citizens of Prairie Lake. Phase 1 is what, and what is Phase 2? And does it go all the way to where Fish Point Road tees up and ends, after you've gone by the lake and by the park and everything?
Okay, so Fish Point Road Phase 1, what we're deeming Phase 1 is the side streets to Fish Point Road between County Road 44 and Highway 13. So that's Omega, Glory, Hidden Oaks, Timberview, Timbercrest. I think I got them. It's all the cul-de-sacs off there. I don't know if Maggie has a map.
So you're going all the way from, County Road 44 to, from 21. You're going all the way from 21, all the way across 13, and no?
Nope, County Road 44. So between the
44.
junior highs to Highway 13.
Okay.
So
Two
if you-
213.
Yep, if you
44
look
to
at the
13.
map on your screen, Manager Hennis, the heavier red streets are what we call Phase 1, and that'll be this summer. And then we're looking at 2023 to come back and do the light pink, which is mainline Fish Point Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bruce?
Just a quick question, Nick. In your downtown area, BMP, are you looking at some kind of ponding, or what do you envision there?
The downtown south, right now, we're exploring a BMP. It'd likely be a combination of ponding and filtration, just south of Pleasant, from that little leg between Main Street and Highway 13. So across from Plate, and it'd be south of that parking area.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to move it.
Go ahead, Frank.
I'd like to move that the district enter into a memorandum of understanding with the city of Prior Lake with respect to the Fish Point Road reconstruction project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. No further conversation. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.
Nick. Okay, we're on to 4.4, the 7 acres property development.
Okay, Mr. Chair, managers. So this EAW or environmental assessment worksheet came up for this project, and it's very unique because it's right by Lower Prior Lake. Let me just pull up the map here. Of course, I don't have the map. Let me just get this report up quick. But it's going to remove a wetland in close proximity to the lake. And it's just such a unique project. Carl and I discussed, addressing the EAW in respect to the rules, but we weren't sure if the managers wanted to have additional comments for this or if you had additional objections because of the way that our water resource management plan is written. Because currently, so here it is, like right by Lower Prior Lake. It's really close. And our current water resources management plan states that we are trying to aim for no wetland loss within our district. Currently, there are no wetland credits that this developer can purchase within our district, so we would definitely have a loss. And so the project may be able to meet the stormwater requirements of our rules. Carl thought perhaps they might have some challenges meeting like those volume requirements, which he can speak more to. But there will be that wetland habitat filtration loss. And I'm gonna let Carl speak more to this because he's the engineer who reviewed it and can speak more to about the maybe controversial issues related to this project.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair's managers, what you have on your screen is the proposed conditions. The blue square is likely a pool, and then the house, and then as you move east away from the lake, there's a garage structure, a new driveway with a kind of a turnaround, and then a very large outbuilding. That large outbuilding and at least part of that drive are over the 1 acre wetland that is kind of the dark color below that. In terms of review of the EAW, what we noted really, so there seemed to be two things going on, A, development, and then B, a known drainage issue here whereby about an 8 acre drainage area comes to this wetland, but that wetland, if it were to overflow, would go to the north. But before it can actually spill out to the north, it puts, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, is it Neefsey Road? A little bit underwater, with some ponding of water on that surface. So certainly there's some interest from the city too in looking at this potential development for addressing drainage issues. And maybe just one quick step back, just to kind of frame this, and I'm sure Maggie will wrap up the discussion too, but this is a mandatory EAW just based on the amount of impact that is happening. The city of Prior Lake is not actually the proposer of the project, they're the regulatory government unit, meaning they review and then would make determination as to whether the EAW is satisfactory or not. The watershed isn't the one that makes that decision. The watershed has the opportunity to comment during this 60-day process, which is wrapping up on the 11th, so 2 days from now. So the overall decision before you is whether or not you agree with the comments that are contained in this draft memo, or if you want to amend, modify, or refrain from commenting. So sorry, I should have started out with that. To the technical points, what I saw when looking at this is, while it would be nice for this project to address the drainage issue, I don't know that filling the wetland and creating a stormwater management pond to the east, which is those kind of darker solid lines, those would be, concept contours of a stormwater pond to satisfy the stormwater requirements for the development, as well as hopefully address the drainage issues that are occurring out there, is necessarily the only solution. Could it, I beg the question, couldn't that drainage issue be solved without just whole-scale filling of the wetland? So that's one comment, just begging the question. With respect to something else that I noted in the EAW, and they're all kind of, you have to follow this form, and they're all numbered. Number 9, I noted that the city actually, or the developer actually noticed that, right now, that large outbuilding doesn't even meet city requirements. And for this development to occur at the size that's being proposed, a variance would likely be required. So again, it's kind of like, do we really need to fill that whole wetland? The proposed stormwater management plan does meet district rate control and water quality treatment requirements, but it's a wet pond. It's gonna, at least as proposed, would be very much similar, likely in contact with groundwater. Infiltration would not likely be feasible, and it would be very difficult, just as proposed, to meet the volume control where you're having a reduction in volume coming from the proposed conditions. So, and the EAW actually notes that as well. I'm just kind of reiterating that. Some further investigation, whether it's now or after the EAW goes through its motions, the developer's going to have to find a solution to meet the volume control standard. And that's not presented in the EAW. Does it have to be? That's the city's decision, whether that has to be figured out now or later. And then we've kind of already hit this wetland a number of times on, does the project really need to fill the entire wetland, or is there another solution that could still maintain some of those estimated 75 to 100 trees around the wetland and some of the values and the functions of the wetland, which the city has in their wetland inventory as a medium for water quality and water quality treatment. The last thing that I would say with respect to the wetland is that it's clear to me, and this is maybe more commentary than anything, it seems like that the primary purpose of filling the wetland is to serve the development. And I don't see that the EAW addresses avoidance and minimization of wetland impact. There ultimately will have to be, through the Wetland Conservation Act proceedings, a clear demonstrated need to fill this wetland in its entirety, and stepping through avoidance, minimization, before going to proposing just purchasing a banking credit somewhere, or on-site mitigation through a stormwater pond, which would have to be a 2-cell feature, not as shown on this concept. So 3 main things: the volume control, I don't see that that's met. I don't see that avoidance and minimization of wetland impacts are addressed, and I would hedge that there's a solution to address the drainage issue without whole-scale filling of the wetland. I also touched on ecological impact, other resources, and it seemed to be just somewhat dismissed, but that's not really in your rule. It's more with respect to secondary benefits that are discussed in your water resource management plan. So those were my observations. We had that draft letter, and then Maggie provided a lot more background and I think options for the board in the cover letter to this. Did you want to speak to those?
Sure, I can in a second. I do want to recognize that Nick is here from the city, and he's available to answer questions about this too, and their review, and maybe some other thoughts on it. Nick, did you want to say anything about the project itself?
And actually, because that was one of my questions, so while you're here, I want to take advantage of this because I was curious, what does the city say about this? We didn't have the drawings in our board packet, or at least I did not. Then I missed that as well. I missed a few of those links. I was unaware of that. So, but that was impactful to me. And so I was curious about what the city's response was, and I was curious because I'm hoping then you can just address these. That's why I'm asking before you get up here. What alternatives has been explored to actually mitigate this? Because this simply looks like that project is designed to purposefully just fill it in so they have more land, and maybe they ought to find a different piece of property. But anyway, so can you share with me where the city sits and what alternatives have been explored, please, Nick?
Right. So Chair Miser, great question. I'm going to back up to Carl talking about the processes it has to go through, and that the main one is that Wetland Conservation Act process. This is a mandatory EAW. So before they can even submit to see what that process says, they have to complete this document. So this is baby step one, if you will.
Yep, I get it.
Of getting through the process. The city, as Carl mentioned, has a flooding issue there, both Neefsies and Cove, when we have high rain years, get a little water in the roads. That's the main interest, and then also the water quality piece. To have a formal BMP and drainage system down there as part of this project, that's the main reason the city is considering this application. But again, it needs to run through the full process. So we haven't seen alternatives other than this at this time.
Thank you. Frank?
Sorry. The 7,000 square foot building that exceeds city requirements by how much?
6,000 feet,
So,
6,000, so,
it's 7 on
Yep.
one and 1,000 on the other.
yep.
And storage of antique vehicles or so, I guess that doesn't matter, but is there some sort of compelling reason why, oh, we've got to have this here? This is the only place it can possibly be.
No, not at all. I mean, that'll get vetted out with a formal plat application, site plan review, and everything. Planning Commission, we would likely not support any building size that does not meet our ordinance, especially on a lot this size.
Go ahead, Frank.
To the extent that our comments aren't a little more firm, if you will, aren't we passively supporting it?
Accepting.
I mean, I
yes.
get the impression part of this process is intended to stack up the evidence, you know, and we have to do it independently, but my gosh, it's more development than this little parcel can possibly handle, especially with a wetland dead center of the thing, and all of the impervious surface surrounding it, it appears.
Bruce?
Mr. Chair, and
There was no question.
yeah, the process right now, like Nick says, baby steps. All this is EAW, and then they determine, the city will determine whether it's acceptable or an EIS is needed. So really, these are just beginning comments. This will come back to us if it does come back. Well, if it does make it past the permit stage or the plating stage, it'll come back to us as a permit application. So this is, all this really are comments. You put all the kind of comments you want. They get put in the record, but the final analysis is, is this EAW sufficient or not? Have they addressed the issues sufficiently, or an EIS is needed? That's really the next step.
That's correct. So just to go through the process a little bit more, there's a 30-day comment period that ends on the 11th at 4 o'clock to have them all in. I've received quite a few comments, both from governing bodies and the residents. I've spoke to quite a few of them as well, which is great. People are reviewing the AW. I appreciate the watershed district reviewing the EAW as well. So we are receiving the comments, and to emphasize on Manager Loney's point, should we get a formal submittal, and the watershed district does review and comment on that as well.
Anybody else down here? Looks like this needs some work. I'm going to put it kind of simply, Frank, are you?
Well, I just wonder if we're being tough enough here in our
Yeah.
comments, and I appreciate, we want to be objective and not subjective, but a 7,000 square
Yeah, I
foot
know.
building, 6,000 square feet outside, and with no apparent necessity.
Correct.
That's not our decision.
I
Correct.
appreciate that, but shouldn't the language be a little stronger?
Yes, so
I mean, it sounds like
that's part of the,
we're going to patty cake with them, and
right. What would you propose? This is the opportunity to put some comments on the record, sir, because I'm going to support that, because this seems sort of shocking. I would say they ought to find a different piece of property for what they're attempting to do. This doesn't seem to be the appropriate piece of property for this kind of a development, and or mitigate the stuff with all the issues, both that the city and Carl has shared with us, that this isn't the place for that,
was,
for every one of those reasons. But
was this part of the area that was I mean, everything was impacted in 2014, but was this area in particular? I don't know if it's elevated.
Neefs-
I don't know, Nick, I would assume it would be a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's one of our requirements of trying to reduce the likelihood of flooding, and we're sure not doing anything in that direction here. Yeah, I don't know what the language is, but I don't see any compelling reason to get anywhere near an approval on this from our perspective.
I concur. Kurt, did you say you had something then?
No, I just wanted to say, I don't know how it got this far. I mean, who let it get to step one? I mean, this is, as far as the watershed district is concerned, this is a no-go from the beginning.
I think that's why they're bringing it to us. Bruce, anything that you would share on this theme? Nothing else? Steve, nothing else? I think you have the comments. Maggie, is there something?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair Manager, so Carl put together this little draft comments on the EAW. Are you good with the comments that he had drafted up? And is there anything else that you want to add? You can also add like a very strong objection if you'd like.
Can I clarify what our comments, they are going to become part of the record that will go back and forth. So along with Carl's feedback here, which I thought he clarified or provided a synopsis of some of the issues that make sense on this, along with some clear three voices questioning this development. And again, I'm putting it as nicely as possible, but yet there's serious questions as to the purpose and the reason for this development in this location for the issues that it has. So I'm assuming that that's sufficient, but maybe not, Maggie, or would you like a vote on this? I didn't think we were after a vote.
Oh, no, we're not after a vote. I just wanted to make sure that that sufficiently covered the comments from the board.
I support Carl's comments along with the additional feedback from the three of us to question this as is. Frank, anything else? Go for it. Yeah. Yep. Appropriate. See that we can get something that is not looking like this. Okay, I think we're on to the next item then. Thank you again, Nick. Okay, 4.5, our district administrator position. Maggie, are you going to introduce this for us?
Sure. So we have completed our final rounds of the interviews for the district administrator last week, and the board has checked the references on its top candidate and had a meeting last night to discuss. We have presented an offer letter to the top candidate, Joni Geis, and she has accepted that offer. I can bring the letter up on screen, or if you guys wanted to provide any background, we could also provide that information at this time.
I think it'd be appropriate to go ahead and put it on screen just so we can make it part of the official record. Please and thank you, Maggie. I think that's a good idea. Probably the only thing I might add in on that while I'm giving her a little time to do that. I'm buying you some time, Maggie. This candidate went through a very significant review. Actually, I should almost let my colleagues down here, but I'm just going to kick this off and you can add to it. But this candidate, Joni, and the rest actually made it through a very significant number of hurdles and a lot of review from many people, some also here in the council chambers, and got extremely high marks, and that's why she ended up making it to the board for our official interviews, and was clear also a standout candidate by the board, and hence we made the offer. But we thought she was bright, capable, had the leadership, the experience, the skill set to help lead this district, sort of as we've sometimes been referring to it, or I maybe have phase 3 of the watershed's life and going after what'll look like the next phase is really go after these projects in the upper watershed. So Joni ended up making a comment. She worked in private industry and was transitioning to this and was reflecting on life and what she wanted to do. And she was looking for a change and ended up in looking at who she was and what she was looking for. The thing that struck out to her, the stuff that she really loved over the decades of her experience, were the projects that she dealt with water. And that also, those were the projects that she won awards at. And so with that, she started thinking, I want to get into the water world. 2 days later, she looks at the Indeed website, and here there's a posting for a new DA position in the city of Prior Lake, and Joni said, I think this was karma. And I got to tell you, when I talked to her today to share with her the offer from the board and the watershed, I said, Joni, I think this was karma as well for this opportunity. So I think we are very fortunate. I'm glad we reached an agreement with Joni. I think she'll be an outstanding candidate and impressed a heck of a lot of people in this community who are knowledgeable in the space. So that's what I'd add. Gents, so sorry, Bruce and Frank were leading this effort on behalf of the board. Anything that you would share? Anything further?
Yeah, we don't want to do it again.
We think we have it right, right,
It was
gents,
quite- it was,
everybody?
I don't know, 4 interviews, Frank? Did she go
Don't
through?
forget to
1,
be,
2, 3, 4, yes.
you need to be a little closer to the mic
Oh,
just in case.
She went through 4 interviews. Frank led the stakeholder team, and I led the technical team, and we worked together on a lot of the questions, and we got a lot of help from Scott County. Joni Schultz, I want to give her a word of thanks.
How many of our partners were part of the review process?
I thought we had 10 or 11 in each of the panels, and we had a stakeholder and a technical panel, as Bruce indicated. And we were trying to send a message to each of the candidates that there are a lot of stakeholders out here, people who are very sincerely interested in seeing the watershed be successful in all of its efforts. And what was really cool is that when we were done with the technical and stakeholder panel, to a person, I think they said, you've got some great candidates. We were down to 5 at the time, I think.
Yep.
And they just said you had some great candidates, because we, frankly, weren't absolutely sure. And it was nice to get that reinforcement. And so Joni gets the job, but we did have some other candidates that, I mean, they made the decision difficult.
Agreed.
As you recall, in our discussion at the Watershed Board meeting. And finally, Joni seemed to mesh well with the staff as well in terms of skills and abilities and that sort of thing. And that was an important consideration, I know, for the board itself.
I was going to add that was staff's top choice too. So consensus by the managers and staff. So that's awesome that we're aligned to this pick. So, Kurt, did you have something you want to share?
I was here 6 years ago when we hired the previous administrator, and I can tell each and every one of you, these 4 candidates were so far above the one we had for 6 years, it isn't even funny. When I look back at the people we were considering back in 2014, I mean, 2 of the 4 had PhDs. The other 2 had significant experience in water resources. And they all seemed like they had a lot on the ball in areas that our predecessor really didn't understand very much, and we've talked about that before. And so I was really impressed. But I think it'll be good going forward. I hope we give her a chance to have a lot of input in all these decisions we have pending or coming up. And I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic.
Great. Thank you, Maggie. Was that enough time?
Mr. Chair, when's their starting date? Do you remember?
Oh, March 1st.
March 1st, okay.
And how do you pronounce her last name? Geese?
No, I
I
heard
don't know.
it.
I thought it was Geis, wasn't it?
I think it's Geisy.
Geesey?
Geisy?
thought
Oh,
it was
yeah, you're
Geisy.
right. It's Geisy.
Yeah, Geisy.
Yeah.
I thought that's what I ended up hearing.
Yeah.
Were you going to pull that up for us then, Maggie, just that we can sort of make this part of the official record?
I could pull up the official one that you had signed and she had signed back. That would just take me a moment.
Okay.
Otherwise, I have this draft if it'll work.
So with that, yes. So in this, we'll take this opportunity, well, again, maybe you're looking for that to pull that up or you can't find it, but we've gone through a challenging period here at the watershed. We're in the middle of some serious transitions for accounting and banking, and Diane chose to resign at that time, and Maggie was willing to step up. Maggie already had a full-time job and was willing to be our interim DA. And so Maggie and staff, nicely done. I know it's been challenging for you, to say the least. And there's more to that, but won't become part of the public record. But thank you for hanging with us and helping us get through this, Maggie. Seriously, we appreciate it and we recognize it. We've attempted to make those statements, I think, sometimes privately, despite also sometimes some private stuff where there's clearly, it's been a difficult time, but thank you for helping us get through this. We won't forget it. So thank you. Okay, there's the official letter from the board. And next page has Joni's signature on it. So often, yes, please. Kurt, would you like to make a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Jody Geisy as our new district administrator effective March 1st.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm going to assume there's no further conversation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. So the next item on the list is manager presentations and liaison updates. And again, this will be for anything that's related to any of our water world, the watershed stuff, not just general stuff. Kurt, you're up, sir.
First of all, I'd like everyone to say hello to the new spring. I think most of you have, not all of you though, I think, have met Lisa Quinn. She is the new Spring Lake Township Supervisor as of January 1st, and she takes the place of Glenn Kelly, who retired after, I think it was 14 years. And I've dealt with her a little bit. She's very enthusiastic, has a lot of interest in many things, and we certainly hope to cultivate that going forward. Otherwise, Sand Creek Township is going through a lot of issues on 169 on the west end of the township with the that 4-lane U.S. highway being rebuilt. So I'll keep you updated on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none other, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And I'm going to confirm, are there any items that any managers wanted to remove from the consent agenda?
Could we pull 5.7 for further discussion?
The Scott SWC 2021 service agreement. Anyone else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Frank? Oh, yeah, aye. He's an aye. Thank you, 5-0. So, go ahead, Kurt. You asked for that item to be removed.
Okay, this has nothing to do with the work that's SWCD or Troy has done for us. It's always been very good. My only issue is, do we want to let the new administrator take a look through the agreement and let her just kind of get back to us on any comments or any specifics she may have suggestions with? That's the only reason I'm bringing this up. Managers, I'm asking the rest of you, what do you think?
Anyone else? Bruce? I'm okay with it. To wait? So I'm going to propose that maybe we don't, and here's why. Yeah, well, that's okay, and I could be in a minority, and that's just fine. I don't, I don't mind that once in a while. But so the reason is, we've vetted these for a number of years. They've been in good order. This is in line with what we've been doing with the SWCD. We're gonna have a new DA coming on board, and we still have a lot of that transition stuff. So again, I think the likelihood that by the time this gets in place, it's gonna be a while before she would be up to speed to even approve this or provide any critique or feedback, and I wouldn't expect her to do such. So for that, those are my reasons why I would not. I don't see reason to pull this off. I can't think of any compelling reason to do that, but I'm open to it, Kurt.
I do, because this is during the slow part of the season, and most of this agreement won't come into play until April when the weather straightens out. Meanwhile, this is a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of instincts that may have a little different take or some beneficial input on this. That's why there's
Okay.
there's I think there's nothing to be lost by postponing it for a mere month.
That's fine. Bruce, are you supportive of that?
I could go either way, but I don't see a harm with her looking at it.
Okay. Well, I see Frank's ready to go, but
Well, you could argue the other way, too. It's only a year agreement. Is this a stock agreement we entered into, like,
it's what we've been doing for years.
and are there substantial increases in costs or in obligations?
No.
Kurt, I admire what you're saying, and you've been consistent in that regard.
He has.
In trying to make sure that the new administrator has input. If this is something that was dynamic and needed a real close examination and it was multi-year, I'd say 100%, yeah, let's hold off. But a one-year agreement, one less thing for her to worry about. And I think isn't it fairly critical too? Don't they provide some services? We were talking about some of the metrics in there that we want them to generate for us.
Okay.
No, Kurt, just a minute though. Steve, where do you sit, please? I'm gonna get,
Yeah, I don't see a real strong reason to delay. I think go forward at this
Okay.
time.
so Kurt, you have an opportunity to make a motion. I mean, I think you're hearing some consensus, but it's okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yeah,
Bruce?
my only thought is, and I did check, I think everything in here is per our budget.
Correct, it's in
I
line with,
did double check, so
yep.
I don't know what would change, Kurt, but I would just respect if you felt that you want to have someone review it, that's fine. But I can also see the other point, it's not going to change much.
It's up to Kurt.
Okay. I think he's not going to make a motion, so then I would entertain a motion to approve the Scott SWC 2021 service agreement. We have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Abstentions, 1. That motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Treasurer Bruce, you are up, sir.
Okay. I did send you out the treasurer's report after the board agenda. And it's our first month of working with our new accountant, CLA, and mainly working with Laura Larson. And if you could see the changes, I put that in the email. Did add the Sterling Bank checking account, got that all set up. And uncleared transactions, got that from CLA. The Northland Securities, now Goldman Sachs is no longer, it's matured, so that money has moved into cash. So it's getting whatever 0.05% interest. So that's a change there. So then what I looked at to make this report somewhat meaningful, I said, let's add future revenues, both first and second half payments. And I took the lower amounts. This is kind of conservative because that's not the full amount we got. We actually got pretty close to the full amount that we levied last year in double checking. And so I put that in there. And then the other change is down under restricted funds. And I got the numbers, let me go back, future expenditures, That all came from CLA, working with Laura. This is the remaining budget that we have, of the budget we have. And estimated expenditures for PLOC is still in there. I don't know if that's a correct number, but just carried it over. And then the other change would be in the restricted funds. We talked about adding the alum, internal revenue, as a restricted fund. That's untouchable, except for alum. So what I was trying to really say here at the very end, what is available for projects for 2021? And that's what the bottom line there. Now, I don't think we can use all of that, but if we get into more money that we're going to spend some projects, if some come forward, we're going to have to really look at our cash flow month to month to see how we can do that. But this tells me we have $800,000 that we could put towards projects. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Bruce, and I'm just going to check because what I'm seeing here is the 12/31/20 report. And so as Maggie has on the screen, and I can't quite read, it looks like it's a projected year-end reserve of 1.64. Thanks for increasing that, Maggie.
Yeah, I got to
So is this,
change that number.
gotcha. That's why I was going to go try and reconcile between that and what's happened
Right.
since January about, now I know as we're moving an account, and you and I ended up having a conversation, I understand some stuff might be a little volatile right now,
Right.
which I get.
Right.
So that's fine, but I just, how comfortable is this? And because there's a significant difference in 800K,
Yeah. Are you looking at,
I'm looking at on the screen.
on the screen?
So your screen, you see
Yeah.
your projected year-end reserves for last year, 1.6.
Right, and we do have that in the bank.
Yep.
But
So then,
Start
but
taking
I'm not,
out- We looked at the end of the year, the expenditures, we didn't have much left.
Those-
We had carryover. Now I threw in all the expenditures for this coming year, as well as the revenues,
so are you suggesting?
and I added restricted number for alum.
So, but are you suggesting then we are currently planning on either spending or putting some money into reserve and over in $800,000 over and above our levy and grant dollars, and that's why we're going to be declining from a 1.6 to 800K? Is that what you're suggesting? Because I thought maybe it was stuff was moving around a little bit just
Yeah,
because of the
no,
new
that's-
accountant, so I was going to be a little,
The previous number, on the expenditures, we evened out. We just said, we got so much left to spend, but we're gonna spend it in 2021, so it evened out. And that's just the way the numbers came out. The biggest change, I don't know I should really look at it a little closer, but the numbers, you can see we have the cash on hand, 1.6, added in the future revenue, 3.6. But if we spend all our money in our budget, then it goes down to 1.5, and then the restricted, I don't know where the big difference is right now without looking at it, but
okay.
obviously, it's in the expenditure amount, and
Was that because we're pulling out these, well, anyway.
no, we
you know what?
just pulled out a little bit of unrestricted. No, those always were there. We just added 230,000.
But
I
when
could
I'm-
double check that,
Okay.
real numbers, but I looked at this, okay, it's a brand new year. Okay, we ended 2020, and now it's a new year, trying
Right.
to look at, okay, what's really relevant here?
Yep, okay,
We've always been looking at end-of-the-year projection.
yep,
So if we do all this work in our budget with and it does seem like, I might have to double check, what's that, 230?
okay.
40, that's about 800,000 there. that
Correct.
We have as restricted. So,
Okay, I'm not
There-
going to
there's
ask
a-
for that answer today,
Yeah.
because I know that there was some stuff moving around as we're doing a transition, and you weren't getting the data and the information at
and
this
this
point,
was
so. but-
kind of in a way, what do we want to see as a board, as a
Yeah.
treasury report? I can simply do it month to month.
Well, I'd be,
But then that would change because we don't have the first half, second half revenues, and we don't have to look at the expenditures coming on.
yep,
that would change, that number would really fluctuate. So what I did is I took out for the whole year.
And that's okay. I appreciate
Yeah.
that whole year, but it just seems like there's changes. But you know what? I'd say we revisit this next month
Yeah.
because I'm going to assume that we
We
will,
were supposed to have that meeting with CLA.
correct, as well on, for some new reports that we were looking to do,
Yeah.
which we haven't done. But I think then we can sort of relook at this and confirm whether these numbers, 'cause
Right.
that's just sort of a significant change that I would not have expected based on where I thought what we did with the budget and levy and any of the expenditures planned for 2021, although I know we moved the Sutton Lake project into this year.
In the
But that should have been increasing the reserves. But anyway, so,
Yeah, these are the
I don't-
numbers I got from CLA.
yeah.
We'll have to
I
work.
think we just revisit this,
Yeah.
but,
My thought process was to say, okay, how much money do we really
Yeah,
have
I got it.
available?
yep. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing nothing, then our upcoming meeting event schedule. Bruce, do you want to just announce this since you're our liaison?
Oh, on
You see what our
CAC?
meeting is? Yeah. Rather
Sure.
than me doing this or
Okay, are you talking, okay.
our upcoming CAC meeting?
CAC will be on Thursday, February 25th at 6:30. It's a virtual meeting. And I'd like to also announce that I will be gone for the month of March.
The month of March?
How can that be?
You're
Warmth and
all,
sunshine.
Yeah, we
Can
can't,
Yeah.
we can't have a meeting down in where I'm going because we learned that.
We just learned that we can't have a meeting outside the jurisdiction, really. Okay, great, thank you.
So the question is, can I go, could I connect in virtually, I suppose?
Yes, I would assume.
As long as we can see your face and hear your voice.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Great. Our favorite motion of the evening. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have something else? No, we added those into the
Is that in
consent
consent?
agenda. Yep.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Or you want to stay here, gents? Second. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you and good night, everybody.